sono spiacente. Perdonami.
Hi, welcome to the edition of Simply Stated here in my car. It's a wonderful warm day here in northern Michigan, and it's 52 degrees. It is not going to be the normal weather here. We're going to be going back to super cold temperatures later this week, but I wanted to note it, and I'm actually going to be going out of the car at the end of the episode, going for a little walk and taking you with me, and so I hope you really enjoy that. It just doesn't get any better in February than the weather today here in Traverse City, where I'm filming this. So, I hope you'll stay around for the whole episode to see some of the scenery and how pretty it is here. And Lake Michigan, that's where we're at, right? Lots to cover today. I came up with almost too much material. There's been so much in the news and so much that I had worked on myself over the years doing investigations in the Washington, D.C. area that it's hard to really summarize in one episode, and I don't know if I have time right now to do more episodes of Simply Stated. We'll see how this episode goes. I think the big thing to focus on today is two things. The competition that I'm involved in, the dance icon competition, and I'll explain it to you. And then the fact that over the weekend, all of the drug cartels, the U.S. Secretary of State, it's important to note that actually happened over the weekend, that Marco Rubio decided to declare, had the Secretary of State, the U.S. State Department finally declared all the cartels to be terrorist organizations. So Jalisco, Sinaloa, all those organizations would now be considered cartels. And if you run a business organization, like what I've been talking about with Endeavor WME, they would also be considered a cartel as well. And that's what I'm telling you. The company was founded on drug dealing and snuff films and abuse of children and a cult and, massive drug trafficking. I did have an issue, when I was living in the Washington, D.C. area. There was a man who made himself known to the rest of us in the Republican Party called Daniel. He called himself Daniel Fry. He said he focused on logistics. I know he covered this on the Thought Project, just so you know, but I actually cut him off on Facebook a couple of years ago because I realized that he was really dishonest, and he had spent a lot of time in Palestine trying to start fights between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And he very much wanted everyone to just focus on fentanyl because he's a coke dealer. He claims his company runs logistics. And I know this, but he was actually a part of Endeavor WE too. So it's a company that focuses on drug dealing all around. They had strong ties with Chinese drug dealers, as well as what you would call the Russian FSB, which is what they're based out of. And it was unfortunate for me that they were ever a part of my life because they trafficked me for years, right? And, so the point of this episode is to get back to something that I referenced in my last episode of Simply Dance with Deborah, because I want to show you all that I still have dance skills and sort of give you a feeling for what life was like before I ended up having my vertebrae in my neck, lower vertebrae in my neck and my back broken by them. It was a result of Endeavor. It's still suspicious today. And then, I have two other injuries in my back. I was thrown out a flight of stairs as well because of by the company, which is actually a drug cartel. So the biggest news coming out of this weekend that most people probably not bothered to digest yet with everything else that's going on is that the U.S. Secretary of State has gone ahead and said, hey, guess what, guys? You're actually considered a terrorist organization now. You're not just a drug cartel. You're not just drug dealers. You're considered to be terrorists. And, President Trump came out last week and said that he was seriously considering, and the U.S. military and the Department of Defense is considering actual military action into Mexico. And that is not to put themselves at odds with the leader of Mexico, but that to say that they're actually willing to go to war with the cartels. And if they have to go down there, to get at them in Mexico, if they have to actually, whatever they have to do to stop this situation, with drugs coming in through Mexico. And it is mostly China running them through there, but it's also Russia. And frankly, it is Russia and their policies that have founded these bizarre, their network that goes around the world of slaves, like what J-Lo used to say about them, that she was very proud of the fact that they had a network of slaves all over the world, mostly in South America and Mexico too. And what I want to note for you is that the main port that they're actually going to have to focus on is the Lázaro Cárdenas port. And that's the big one to get after as far as, drugs coming into Mexico that would end up coming towards the U.S. And I'm going to take you backwards a little bit here and try to put this together for you as best as I can, because I collected so much information. I went, oh no, like I almost need to write a paper on this, but I don't really have time right now. So here's the thing. Former Proud Boys leader was arrested. Enrique Tarrio was arrested on 2/21/2025 near the U.S. Capitol on Thursday afternoon. So, not really a Trump supporter, like I pointed out. Very much in with the Russian FSB and the cartels, and was part of attacking the U.S. Capitol. And he's now been arrested. And, infiltrated Trump supporting groups and tried to pretend like he was among them and wasn't. It's important to know the Trump administration did nothing to try to help him. And so that happened in 2/21/2025. And then also, you need to know that on Thursday, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi also fired the chief counsel for the ATF, which is Pamela Hicks, because she's been a serious issue and not good on any of the stuff I just talked about with the cartels, the Russian FSB, the drug running, everything for the Chinese CCP, all of it. And then I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm trying to keep up with everybody here because there was so much that came out. I was like, oh. You need to remember that, Mayor Bass of Los Angeles fired the fire chief, Kristen Crowley, on Friday around 3 p.m. And Chief Villanueva will be the interim. So good for him for stepping in her place. She refused to do what is considered a normal report, which is that she was supposed to do what's called an action report, an after action report. She refused to do that because she didn't want to do the investigation into the fire and why it happened. So, very suspicious person. I would be looking into whether or not she was part of Endeavor WME, because that's the kind of thing that they do and have done my whole life and everyone else's. And also it's important to know that the mayor is working on finding a new chief of police too. How long have we been waiting for the Los Angeles police to get overhauled? And it's now at a point where maybe even less people want to live out there anymore, but they'd probably be just as happy, right? Because too many of the cartels moved into the Los Angeles area. I mean, I didn't take a job out there years ago, even though that was a field I belonged in, because the cartels had so much control over the area. A woman who was a part of them literally stalked me when I was at entertainment and I didn't go to work out there. And that was where I belonged. Everyone in the government did that. The federal government knew that. Spent years just watching the whole thing unfold. And how many years have we gone, watching these horrible stories about people being, stores being ransacked, attacked, assaulted before the Academy Awards, Emmys, Grammys, Golden Globes, anything out in Los Angeles? Or, even what happened last summer with Jennifer Lopez's people ransacking the Tyson's Galleria and beating up innocent citizens and employees, and maybe even people who were just visiting in order to get herself a dress for her show and her performance, or maybe it was just a bunch of parties she went up in Toronto. But the point is, she literally stole a dress that was Chanel from there, and she hurt people over it. She assaulted and injured them. That's been going on every single time there's an award show out in LA. How long have people been waiting for the LA police to get their act together and put a stop to that kind of behavior? At least in Virginia, they actually publicized it and, tried to put an investigation into it. And it's kind of sad that the DC government, Virginia government, Maryland government, and then even the federal government has relied on me and individuals like me to report on this stuff, because the U.S. government can't rely on their actual own media anymore, because so many of them become Russian and Chinese assets that apparently run by the cartels. Look at Matt Lauer. He's back at NBC News. Why do you think that is? His sister went to Luther College. It's because he's in with the cartels, people. You can call it Russian FSB, you can call it their people, or you can say the gangs that belong to it, or you can say cartels, but it's the same thing. Same shit, new day. Okay? Same shit, different label. I don't like labeling, but that's what's happened. The U.S. government decided to label it all cartels. And they've had it with them. Our new head of immigration and border control has decided, he said, both he and the current director of the FBI said that you can put a target on them and get mad at them if you want somebody to get mad at, but don't take it out on the rest of us anymore. So, apparently Pam Bondi has the list of Epstein's clients in her office over the weekend, and she's getting ready to release that. I hope she goes ahead and releases it. Please, release it, honey. Release it. Look, there's so many people who know me, and even people that stalked me up here that knew about some of the stuff I went through and how disgusting, how public it was, and I don't care. I don't have time to be ashamed of what somebody else who was disgusting and perverted did to me. I only have time to focus on being employed, my health, trying to get what joy I can out of my life, and, living my life. So, and I doubt anybody else who's been seriously victimized in any of these situations or had family members killed because of it, like I have, would ever want anyone to hold back. Let it rip. And I say that because one of the men who assisted Jeffrey Epstein in his exploits went to Luther College, and he worked at the TSA, and he actually assisted him in trafficking women and men around the country. Also, Lauren Sanchez was at Luther College the year I graduated and went around telling people literally that they had to be in films, and she called them porns. They weren't really porns. Like, she was sort of talking about erotica. She meant actual porns, like, people being murdered, snuff films. And someone jokingly said about that, I said, Deborah, you made the joke on your show. I was like, you get a snuff film and you get a snuff film. Another person say, and they also could have very easily just simply said, and, when there's another film where Deborah gets raped and somebody else from the school gets 10,000, because there was clearly a number of people went to the school that were wealthy. They were Russian, part of the FSB of Russia, who made a lot of money out of trafficking the rest of us, and myself included. I mean, I've never received restitution, and I was forced to work on all these different products and projects for Endeavor and never got compensated. I also, unfortunately, had to deal with a weird situation with CIA where they were convinced that they thought I was just giving stuff away for free, and I wasn't. And so I gave them a bunch of material for a while, only to get funds together to get lawyers so I could get a protective order finally away from... I could finally get a protective order to get away from Cersei and Wilhelm. And frankly, Endeavor WME itself. So I ended up having to do a lot of work. Now, does that make me a power CIA? No, it makes me someone who's, worked with them on trying to solve a problem. There's no way around it. CIA has too many people in there that are actually from Endeavor still they have to get rid of. And that's their problem, their issue. But it's something I want to work on, because with Endeavor now officially being considered a drug running operation, a cartel, everybody is going to want to get those hands off. Like, get away from the weird Russian company. Away from the weird Russian company. Stay away from the weird Russian drug cartel. And I say that because my nose, I almost want to cry. This stuff makes me so nervous sometimes. You just know there's a story out now called... Actually, it's from the Green Beret Chronicles that four members of the U.S. military, two Green Delta Force, Green Delta Force member, two Navy SEALs, an Army Ranger from the 75th Regiment have been noted as defected and starting to run the Jalisco cartel. And the problem in the situation was the U.S. government hiring people from other countries who, after leaving the U.S. military, then decided to go ahead and work for the cartels. This has actually been a problem since the days of George W. Bush. There was the Luna operation, Baja California operation, Juarez, cost $270 million. And there's also been a problem with Border Patrol agents being dirty. That was a story from Ironclad Borderland. So there's a bunch of different stories out there now from independent journalists talking about these issues with, what's going to rise the cartels. Unfortunately, you're going to find a lot of it goes back to the days of George W. Bush. As if we didn't all know the city was completely nuts when George W. Bush was running it. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen. Was the Washington, D.C. area when George W. Bush was running it. And I put Obama down and said, he was just Bush light. The point about Obama was that his administration started out to be nothing more than another repeated Bush. And then there were some interventions made in President Obama's life himself because of myself and some other people. And, so his second term, he was able to do something different and head in a different direction. Like I told you a story about the doctor I had who suggested I go over to the White House, at Obama's White House, and I was supposed to be a prostitute. I said no, and because I didn't know somebody working in that White House who actually had better values than George W. Bush people ever did in his White House. I said, hey, this woman's threatening me and saying I have to go over there and work as a prostitute. He got really angry and said, I have enough of that, and began making strides to change things in Obama's circles. So there was actually a lawyer involved there that I reached out to. Is like, hey, this woman, these people are really trying to set him up. They're really nuts. And they're trying to push him, strong arm him into doing what the cartels want. That doesn't mean the Obamas are completely innocent, but I just want you to understand, that I didn't mean to say, I guess I wouldn't really call him Bush light, but it's the simplest way to summarize that the guy just didn't have enough sort of power coming into his own term, his first term, to pull out of the weird spin that George W. Bush had put the country into by honoring the cartels. And the problem with George W. Bush was that he is essentially a drug addict. He does not drink. He was an AA member. I have no time to try to honor AA rules because I met too many people who are abusive and traffickers in the 12 subgroups. And he frankly does drugs. He was frankly high on edibles the day of the inauguration this year. So, it's just really difficult when you've had a leader in the past who really hurt all of us and had a DC area so corrupt that, I told you a story about Nicole Scherzinger running around setting off, blowing things up and running around half naked or basically naked. I told you about how my friend literally picked her up and stopped her from committing any other bizarre crimes that night. That was back in 2003. We actually had black helicopters flying around the city attacking women and claiming that they were terrorists for being halfway attractive and demanding that they work for free on Hollywood projects. Not to volunteer to help the poor or needy or to really help anyone else out, but actually just do free labor and trafficked us. And if Obama's administration hadn't turned around, I don't know what would have happened, because I was in the middle of having to go to these bizarre meetings where I was literally being tortured on a weekly basis because of Bush's legacy and told to work for free and just, being tortured to death and told to work, on script or project, whatever. It's important to also note that President Donald Trump finally fired the Joint Chiefs of Staff, C.Q. Brown Jr. on Saturday morning. That's 2/22/2025. That's another guy that needed to go. Many of us have discussed the fact that he was not very honest and seemed to be someone who was more than responsible for some of the flaws. He was somebody that George W. Bush had been fond of and liked and was one of his people. Nobody wants to think of someone as being a part of the cartels or a puppet for them, but that's pretty much how C.Q. Brown came off, just like George W. Bush did too. So it's important to know that. I want to note something for you if you're still confused about this. I was actually in the Terry Mugler show in 1995, and Cersei wanted me out of the fashion world because she wanted to make room for Gisele Bündchen. She had a relationship to her as a model, and because she wanted to run drugs. And so I was actually, somebody who had a future in the modeling world and modeled for Terry Mugler, and then only got to the one show and then literally just had to leave. And the sad part was always that people in the industry actually know that happened to me. And I don't know how the other ones had a staying power in it, except that a lot of them have actually worked their way out of it, frankly, that were big at that time. And I mean, the way she handled the time to cover up was just really disgusting. She hit on me and was just really perverted and nasty to me and said it was all about sex. And then it finally came out that she just wanted to put Gisele Bündchen in and just wanted to be abusive to me. And I just got really, there's been so many bizarre conversations where I was battling things out in the DC area and finally realized that what I was dealing with was the mental illness and disgusting behaviors of the cartels, because the cartels are it's Russian FSB, but it's a lot of pervert behavior. It's a lot of trying to gross people out. It's a lot of brainwashing. And it's a lot of demanding that people do what they say and want. And there's no reason for anyone to, because there's no benefit to it. Why would you? And so it's important to understand that the Jalisco Cartel is now considered a foreign terrorist group. It's called the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Congressman Morgan Luttrell, 28224, and the U.S. Senator Tom Cotton drew up a law, but policy to capture the heads of the Jalisco Cartel called the Jalisco Cartel Neutralization Act. It was a bill for the Pentagon to have the Department of Defense kill the Jalisco Cartel outright. And Jalisco Cartel is actually founded out of the Michoacán region of Mexico. President Sheinbaum is currently the leader of Mexico. And it's also important to remember that the Sherman Act and Clayton Act on cartels are also relevant at this point. Remember MS-13, the Sinaloa cartel also are considered global terrorist organizations now. Jalisco, Coloma, Nayarit, central western states, Mexico. There's been a lot of fighting with the Santa Rosa Lima cartel. Puerto Lazaro, Cardenas is one of the major ports that they've been using. Let's see, as of May 21st, 2024, the DEA announced the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels had infiltrated all 50 states and eliminated drug selling competitions. So, there's lots of problems also with the Sinaloa cartel in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, I want to remind you of something else, because we do have a strong relationship with the Australian government. They're working on these issues too, and so is the English government. So we're not alone as the U.S. in making these decisions. It's important to know the Australian government got fed up enough that they actually came over and picked up John Isley, who trafficked my mom. And do not forget the Australian government also has joint operations with the U.S. at the Pentagon and the DIA. So it isn't like we're just flying by the seat of our pants on this stuff. But I want to also note that Sean P. Diddy Combs' lawyer, Anthony Rico, decided to drop out before the May 2025 trial started on Saturday. Now, let's flip around and back to Endeavor WME, because they have a long history of stealing from other artists. Oh, also, U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell will be retiring from office, and you need to watch out because I think he still has that woman from Luther College who was really nasty. It was Julie, as an office manager. She looked tiny, I think, looked like she would be very dangerous, but she was extremely mean when it came to, she had literally I don't think she had any heart when it came to having people trafficked. And she was one of the reasons that his office has had some problems, because even though she was just supposed to be an office manager, she's not someone that ever should have stayed, but because she had a relationship with the cartels, she was allowed to stay in her position. So that's how he's been undermined all these years. But now he's got to retire. And it's important to know that she had a relationship with Cersei and was one of the people who said, oh, I got it when I talked about the issue. And she planned to just sweep the whole thing under the carpet. And I ended up having to go up against her in the office. Not Mitch McConnell, but her. His staffer that really needed to be fired, and he didn't feel like he could fire for some reason. And yeah, she beat Endeavor WME person. And I don't, obviously the issues with him didn't rise to the same level as, like, Robert Zevon McCarthy, who had to be thrown out. But there's a definite issue there when she was allowed to stay around as an office manager. Like, she should never have been able to stay there at all. It's just really strange. There's reasons for that, I'll talk about, but I think that has to do a lot with this bizarre paralysis sometimes around DC and even Congress. So, fast facts, like history story, I'm going to talk about the singer Baby Bash. He sang Baby Bash featuring Frankie J. Sugar. It was stolen to use by Sugar Ray. The song Sugar Sugar Baby, How I Get So High. Yeah, I said I was going to find the original singer of that song. I did. Somebody put it up on YouTube, and it's now being run over the top of Sugar Ray, so Sugar Ray can't get their version played anymore, because Sugar Ray stole it. It was stolen by Patricia for Endeavor WME, so they can manage Sugar Ray, and they just stole the material and didn't bother to actually use it at all. Sorry. They used it and didn't pay Frankie J. So they would like for me to screw up and say they didn't use it all, that's not true. But they didn't let Frankie J use it to make money with, maybe not even until, now. But somebody found it and put it up on YouTube so he could actually make some money. So whoever did that, thank you. That was really nice. I'm going through and checking off my list. 44 pounds of meth was seized by the Mexican government recently. So remember, it's not just fentanyl. It's meth, coke. Those are the three biggies. But you got to kind of remember all those. It's also important to note that Mark Daniels, a county sheriff down the border, said that there was a very significant chance they'd be sending special forces into Mexico to go after the cartels. So it isn't just Donald Trump saying, oh yeah, about that. Like, they've got actual law enforcement saying, no, we're going to have to actually get the military after this. And then, let's see. I thought it was really interesting last week. Elon Musk with his chainsaw was wearing the exact same sunglasses that I had designed for Dollar Tree that everyone gets for $1. Like, up here in Michigan, everybody has these if they want for $1, literally. So it's just kind of funny. It was really cute. That's one fun thing you can talk about. I think there's actually been a lot of disagreement in the past on U.S. policy over letting terrorist attacks happen and then taking action, and I think that we're seeing a reversal of that now, which is probably the most important thing. For some of you, I think, my show might just be more of a wake-up call, just because of what I've seen so much in my life. And, I've got a few other points here that I'm going to tie into another story so that people kind of understand, what some other stuff going on. I've had some other points I'm just going to take and, carry over to another show, I think. But let's talk about this competition. So, I unthinkingly got into this dance competition. It was a Sarah Dance Icon competition. I'd forgotten about everything. And then I was reminded, here's the problem. Sierra's the woman who posed as Ilka Johnson over at Arlington County that planned part of the attack on the U.S. Capitol. And she was she's Iranian, and she was a part of Endeavor WME even then. And supposedly, it only came up in the news cycle of Google that she was died recently, and it's not true. And I had that confirmed by a source that worked at the Pentagon a long time ago at Intel. She's been really dishonest. And I noticed also that she featured Heather Morris last week for the Anti-Icon competition. Heather was just really hostile and offensive in the video, really making fun of the dancers and the competition itself. And she had this weird gold jewelry that's featured in gang cults that I had seen in ads that somebody tried to send me, like it was supposed to be for free and just pay for shipping. I was like, no, I don't want to be an ambassador for your weird cult group. I don't wear your weird jewelry. And I thought, they're just making fun of us. Like, I made an entire Simply Dance episode about it. And I thought, no, I think I'm going to do one better. Claim to be a choreographer for Beyonce. I, somebody who did choreography for Beyonce, didn't get paid for it. All these other people who did work for Beyonce didn't get paid for it. There were actual people that have been picked up and actually forced to dance for free for Beyonce. I did my last dance for the competition on 2/20/2025 and decided to move on from there. I even posted about it online. And, the Dance Icon competition was fairly nice about it. Now they're doing postings talking about how people aren't supposed to be paying to win the competition, but yet they still have all these ads up about how we're supposed to be making donations and paying them to win it. So basically, if you really want to be in the top 8, you can give them the money and be in the top 8. I wouldn't recommend it because it's pretty obvious in the way the competition is put together that you just be going down to Phoenix, which is a horribly overrun area with too many cartels. You'd be in danger of being trafficked. At best, you'd be getting talked down to on TV. Endeavor's favorite thing is to get people in positions where they put them on camera, make fun of them, criticize them, record the footage, and then they'll actually use your dances and your work later and not pay you. So I would not bother with it at all. I want to also note that I have absolutely no doubt, based on my conversations with Ilka, who's actually Ciara, that she killed Aaliyah. And if she didn't kill her directly, she benefited directly from it because Patricia said that they used her voice for Ciara's. The songs that Ciara has, which I was actually kind of fond of and without realizing it, were actually stolen from Aaliyah. And she was just the person, because Aaliyah's not Russian and she doesn't have any ancestry with Iran or China. So they wanted her killed. And she didn't benefit the cartels. She was a very young child when the situation started with her in Chicago. I mean, she was like 13 when they first started putting her on TV, and they made her look like an adult woman. It's kind of sad, but I mean, I loved her work. I just hated that they killed her so young. Because Willem told me in advance they were going to kill her. And he was one of the founders of Endeavor WWE, said he was going to kill her. They did. And he got away with it. I was a huge fan of hers. Loved Aaliyah. Just loved Aaliyah. I'll never, ever really totally get over that. But, it's just a really hurtful, weird memory on top of so many other weird memories with these people. And I even thought at the time that he was just, that Wilhelm was just bragging about it. I didn't really think he was actually the person who was going to kill her. No, he really is that guy. The Russian FSB and the cartels that they have founded, whether it's, you'd call it the Jalisco cartel today or Sinaloa cartel or whatever you want to call it, they all come out of the same dumb Russian FSB crap, and they definitely killed her. And most of it's just that their culture, but it really was for the material and to replace her with Ciara, who has some Russian ancestry. She's an Iranian. She hangs out with Lotto, who also cross-dresses and dresses as a white person some of the time, and can appear very differently, and essentially is a terrorist group. Do you really want to go be in a competition with a terrorist group? And the reason I'm going to say that is because I found the guy. See, I decided after what I saw with Heather Morris's little weird mini video last week to not bother doing all the choreography. I did my own. And then later in the day, I looked up some other videos and saw that another guy who's exceptional, he's a young black man from here in the U.S. He's a really fabulous dancer. Ballet, he was doing ballet moves, splits. He was kind of throwing like a strip routine. He had another guy like pouring water on him. It was hilarious. He was fantastic. He said he wanted to go. And I posted his stuff on my page, and I also told him he was fantastic. And I said, I hope, I want that guy to win. He's definitely an MI5 person, and he totally needs to be in that competition. Like, he needs to be down in Neville, Louisiana, and just kick butts and know that they're going to be stupid and rude and want to put him down, and that they're going to want to try to take footage and steal it and not pay him. And recognize that, they've featured another woman already from, or not Neville, I'm sorry, I keep saying that. Let's talk about Neville, Louisiana, because I keep throwing it in there and I'm not quite getting this right. Sorry. So, there's a woman who's appeared in the news from Neville, Louisiana. Unfortunately, she looks a little too Russian. And she's clearly being put forward as the person to go and win. And I see two things. One, I see a very potential victim for being trafficked. Two, I think that if she were to win it, I would assume she was a drug dealer. Because Endeavor WWE never has their people run competitions where anybody who isn't another drug dealer or part of a cartel can win. Now, if this guy I've picked out goes down there, kicks butt, does it MI5 style, and like somehow they want to give it to him, just make him go away, hey, it's whatever. But, what they did with this woman down in Neville, Louisiana, it's like either they're setting her up to be trafficked and end up in a snuff film like my mom did, or she's literally just another drug dealer that they're planning to, like, what is this, like a big payoff? Like, makes my nose, my eyes itch, and makes me want to cry. It's just like awful. So, I mean, the point about all this for me as I kind of pivot around is I'm going to let the really, like, super fit guy who can do, like, backflips and ballet spins and splits go down there, go down to Phoenix and kick butt, even if the competition even goes off that far. Because now it's going to be labeled as a terrorist event with the cartels. So, the only kind of person you'd want to go is some MI5 person down there. I had posted his dance routine on my Facebook page and said I wanted him to win it. And also, I think I may have also posted on LinkedIn, but that's the kind of person I would want to go to deal with these people. Because it's a terrorist group. And a cartel. That's all Ciara is. She's just a member of the cartels. But for the rest of us, like, you lady down in Neville, Louisiana, if you're a good woman and you don't have Russian ancestry, don't go. Because you'll just end up like my mom. And I don't want to see any more women end up like that. Whatever racial group you're from. I just want people to be happy and well taken care of. I got a few other things to cover here really quickly. I'm not going to put another episode because it's my show. I do what I want. The IRS plans to lay off 7,000 workers. Yeah, you have to, because they haven't done their job making all these other people pay taxes. Like, pretty much every client in Endeavor owes money. JLo owes money. Taylor Swift owes money. Everybody ever worked with Buffalo Bill owes money on taxes. And they didn't pay me, and so they didn't pay taxes on employment either. Okay? Because when you don't have proper employees, you labor traffic people, you actually owe money on taxes. The IRS has actually screwed this up. They've actually screwed up U.S. money. They're actually missing millions of dollars because they haven't been keeping up with the labor traffickers. So they know about my case and they haven't bothered to collect the money. And I haven't gotten paid either. And that's something they could have enforced or at least to get taxes. Like, they could have got after them for tax evasion. JLo, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Ciara, anybody in Endeavor WWE is up for being investigated for tax evasion. They didn't do it. And I'm not like a huge Trump person. I saw, just if you want an example of some criticism, I saw the story from Glenn Beck about how he's got this new interfaith person or faith office person, and she's really sketchy because she's always asking people for money. Yeah, I'm not down with that. And I'm not going to pretend like I praise every little thing that President Trump does or his administration does. But there are certain things they're doing right that need to be noted, and I've worked really hard to get done. And I took time to praise, some of the stuff I'm talking about happened during the days of, frankly, Kamala Harris trying to hold the administration together. So, and that woman needs to be praised because she looks completely exhausted these days. And I know everyone likes to make fun of her, but it's not really funny to make fun of a woman who was trying to hold the whole country down with a president who's so mentally ill, he was just making mess out of everything. Like, I just had to mention he was crazy. So, let's try to be a little nicer than that to our former vice president. She was our first female vice president. I think she worked really hard, and I don't think we'd be where we are now with some of these things if she hadn't done her job to a certain extent. So I think you gotta give her just a little bit of credit. Just a little bit of credit to that lady, because she looks really, really tired. And let's walk around a little bit. I'll show you how pretty it is outside. Lovely day. Look at how pretty it is. Actually, it's getting kind of grayish now. So pretty here, though. Look at that sunset. I should probably stand somewhere that isn't like just the parking lot behind me, but oh, my hat's gone. Have a good one. This is another episode of Simply Stayed, a really long one.